Most people do not lose focus because they are lazy. They lose focus because their environment keeps pulling their attention in too many directions, and their body is asked to create clarity on demand without enough support. So they reach for caffeine, one more cup in the morning, another in the afternoon, sometimes one more when the day starts slipping. It feels practical, it feels normal, and for a short while it works. But the deeper problem is often still there. The mind is still scattered, the energy is still uneven, the attention still depends on stimulation instead of structure. This is where a quieter approach becomes useful. Many Japanese-inspired habit systems do not begin with intensity. They begin with arrangement. Instead of asking, "How can I force myself to focus harder?" the better question is, "How can I make focus easier to enter?" That is a very different mindset. Because focus is not usually a character trait. It is often the result of design. The way you start the day, the amount of friction in front of important tasks, the number of decisions you make before real work begins, the pace at which your nervous system is moving, all of these shape attention long before motivation has a chance to help. And this is why more caffeine can become a misleading solution. Caffeine can raise alertness, but alertness is not the same thing as directed attention. You can be very awake and still mentally all over the place. You can feel energized and still avoid the one thing that matters. So in this video, I want to walk through 5 Japanese-inspired habits that improve focus without asking you to depend on more stimulation. Not dramatic changes, not strict routines that collapse after 3 days. Just small, steady adjustments that reduce noise, lower friction, and make concentration more natural. The first habit is to create a quiet entry into the day. A lot of people begin the morning by opening the mind before they have grounded the body. They check messages in bed. They scan headlines. They let notifications decide what deserves attention first. And by the time the day officially begins, their mind is already reacting instead of leading. A calmer approach is to protect the first 10 to 15 minutes of wakefulness. No phone, no scrolling, no decision-heavy input. Instead, do something simple and physical. Open a window. Wash your face slowly. Drink water. Stand in natural light. Fold your blanket. These actions seem small, but they matter because they create a stable transition from sleep into awareness. In behavioral terms, you are reducing early cognitive overload. You are telling the brain very quietly that the day has a sequence. This matters because attention is fragile in the first part of the day. Your brain is shifting out of sleep inertia, and whatever captures it first often shapes the emotional tone of the next hour. If your first contact is urgency, your mind learns urgency. If your first contact is order, your mind learns order. The second habit is to prepare one clear target before your work begins. One reason people feel unfocused is that they sit down to work with a vague intention. They want to be productive. They want to get things done. But the brain does not focus well on abstraction. It focuses better on specificity. Work on my project is vague. Write the opening paragraph is clear. This sounds simple, but it changes everything. When the next step is visible, resistance drops. The brain does not have to spend energy deciding where to begin. And that matters because decision fatigue often arrives earlier than people realize. It is not only big life decisions that drain attention. Small repeated moments of uncertainty do it too. What should I do first? Where do I start? Should I answer this message now? Should I switch tasks? Each small choice takes something. Japanese-inspired discipline often respects this reality. It does not assume endless willpower. It creates form so that willpower is needed less. Before starting work, write down one sentence. When I begin, I will do this first. That sentence acts like a track for your attention. It narrows the field. It reduces hesitation. And once the first action begins, focus often follows more easily than expected. The third habit is to reduce visual and behavioral clutter around the task. People often think distraction is mainly internal, but much of it is environmental. A phone beside the keyboard, 10 tabs open, a messy desk, background noise that keeps the brain slightly alert. None of these may seem powerful on their own, but together they create a field of low-grade interruption. And the brain responds to interruption even when you do not consciously notice it. Attention works partly through inhibition. In other words, focusing on one thing requires suppressing many other things. The more irrelevant signals in front of you, the more work the brain has to do just to stay on track. That is tiring, and tired attention starts looking for relief, often in the form of novelty. This is one reason caffeine sometimes feels helpful. It temporarily increases alertness, which can mask the fact that your environment is poorly designed. But if the real issue is too many competing signals, stimulation will only carry you so far. A better strategy is to make the task visually louder than everything else. Clear the desk until only what you need is visible. Put the phone out of sight, not face down beside you. Close tabs that are not part of the current task. If possible, work in the same place for the same type of task each day. That repetition teaches the brain through association. Over time, the setting itself becomes a cue for concentration. This is a quiet form of training. You are not trying to force attention. You are teaching it where to go. The fourth habit is to work in deliberate intervals with soft resets. Many people damage their focus by expecting it to stay strong for too long. They sit down and tell themselves they will work intensely for hours. But attention is rhythmic. It rises and falls. It needs recovery before it fully collapses. When people ignore that rhythm, they usually do one of two things. They either push until their mind becomes muddy, or they keep switching tasks because steady work starts to feel uncomfortable. In both cases, focus weakens. A more sustainable approach is to use deliberate intervals, not as a productivity trick, but as a way to respect how attention behaves. Choose one block of concentrated work. It could be 25 minutes. It could be 40. It does not need to be perfect. The important thing is that during that interval, there is one task and one direction. Then take a short reset that does not flood the brain with stimulation. Stand up, stretch, breathe near a window, walk for 2 minutes. Avoid opening social media or jumping into a stream of novelty because that does not refresh attention. It scatters it again. This relates to dopamine in a very practical way. Your brain is always tracking what feels rewarding and what feels effortful. When you constantly alternate deep work with highly stimulating content, ordinary concentration starts to feel dull by comparison. That makes the next session harder to enter. But when your breaks stay light and your work sessions stay clear, the brain stops expecting a huge reward spike every few minutes. Focus becomes more tolerable, then more familiar, then more normal. The fifth habit is to close open loops before they multiply. One hidden cause of poor focus is not lack of effort. It is mental residue, small unfinished thoughts, things you need to remember, messages you have not answered, tasks you have not defined, plans you have not placed anywhere. They stay active in the background, quietly pulling on your attention. This creates a mind that is technically available but not fully free. A simple Japanese-inspired approach is to externalize more of your mental load. Keep a small notebook or a single capture page nearby. When something unrelated appears while you are working, do not hold it in your head. Write it down and return. This seems almost too basic, but it protects attention by giving the brain a trusted place to release unfinished thoughts. Psychologically, this reduces cognitive tension. The brain relaxes when it believes something will not be lost. That is important because many distractions are not actually temptations. They are reminders. They arise because the mind is trying to protect something unfinished. And once you understand that, focus starts to feel less mysterious. It is not always about becoming more disciplined in the dramatic sense. Often, it is about giving the mind fewer reasons to keep turning away. Less clutter, fewer decisions, more visible structure, better timing, gentler transitions. That is the pattern behind all 5 habits. Not more force, more design. So tomorrow, do not ask yourself to become a different person. Do not promise yourself some perfect routine powered by will. Start smaller than that. Protect the first minutes of the day. Define one clear starting action. Remove one distraction from your workspace. Work in one intentional interval. Write down what would otherwise stay spinning in your head. That is enough, because focus rarely improves through intensity alone. It improves when life stops fighting against it. And that is where small habit systems become powerful. They do not change everything at once. They quietly change the conditions under which your attention operates. Over time, that changes more than people expect. You feel less dependent on stimulation. You start work with less resistance. You recover attention faster when it drifts. You trust your mind more. And that may be the most useful form of discipline, not the kind that looks impressive for a day, but the kind that quietly supports your life every day after that. Consistency beats intensity. Structure beats impulse. And focus in many cases is not something you chase. It is something you make easier to return to.